Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and today I'm bringing you a video about Mercury moving into the sign of Aries. And it's happening tomorrow, Saturday, the 11th of April at 10:48 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now, this is a welcomed shift in my opinion because we have just had Mercury in the sign of Pisces for the last 2+ months. And Mercury doesn't typically stay in a sign that long. In fact, it's going to be in the sign of Aries for about 2.5 weeks. Like I said, it goes into the sign tomorrow and it leaves Aries on the 28th of April. So a little over 2 weeks. But it was in Pisces because it had a retrograde. So it spent 2+ months in Pisces. And Pisces being a water energy dealing with emotion and feeling, and it's mutable, so it relates to change. It was just kind of a long process of revisiting emotional experiences, reviewing connections on an emotional level, kind of like almost perhaps bringing some confusion around thinking in relationship to our emotions and needing to kind of get more ultimately clarity. But now we're moving into Mercury in Aries, and that's like a brand new way of Mercury expressing itself, because Pisces is actually the completion of the zodiac, and then Aries starts the beginning of it. And Aries is a cardinal fire sign, so it has to do with asserting. Cardinal is very directed in its expression, and it's going somewhere. And it's fire energy is what Aries is, and that's inspiration. So Mercury being our thinking, our communicating, the exchange of information in our local sphere is all of a sudden going to kind of get this boost of energy from Mercury moving into the sign of Aries, and it's going to bring a whole new way of communicating and relating over the next 2.5 weeks. I wanted to read a few keywords from the Keywords book by Paul Grell, and he talks about what Mercury is. And he calls it the link of mind. And he says that with the reasoning mind, well, he starts by saying androgynous Mercury rules the reasoning mind, the link between spirit and form, and it's the messenger of the gods. With the reasoning mind, we are self-conscious, aware of the activities in the world about us. We are able to perceive and evaluate thought and action, to observe cause and effect, action and reaction. Mercury is the link of communication. Inwardly, the link of reason between spirit and form. Externally, the senses permit communication between ourselves and others. And then he says, through reason, man has freedom of choice, is responsible for his own acts, has the opportunity for self-conscious advancement and growth, and is aware of his divine origin and potentiality. Basically, the point is that he's making is that Mercury is how we kind of interpret the information that we are getting from our environment around us. And it allows us to help make decisions based on the information that we're receiving. I like how he says that man has freedom of choice and is responsible for his own acts, has the opportunity for self-conscious advancement and growth, is aware of his divine origin and potentiality. So that's suggesting that with this mercurial function, there is an option or an opportunity for us to gather information and then make decisions based on that information. So he talks about some basic concepts of what Mercury might be expressed out in the world. And he says, for example, it's your reasoning function, which is either expressed as brilliance or skepticism. He talks about being scientific with the Mercury function, or which is expressed as detachment, or it can be expressed as unsympathetic. And he also expresses the Mercury function as duality, which can be expressed as having discrimination or being indecisive. So you can see the different ways that the Mercury function can play itself out. Now, in Aries, again, Aries is this sign of action, of springing forth with inspiration. So we can get the idea here that to have the thinking function in the sign of Aries, it might be a time where there is lots of mental activity. We are coming up with new ideas about things that we've been looking for solutions for in our lives right now. Maybe we just feel more optimistic at this time. We feel like the world is our oyster, and there's a lot of opportunity available to us. These are all the way the mind can think in Aries ways. It can want to get things started. There might be a lot of communication, a lot of emailing, a lot of phone calling, a lot of wanting to initiate action around things that need to get handled. This is all really positive. On the flip side, the Aries energy, because Aries is the I am principle, it is connected with the ego. So, of course, there can be potential for us to really kind of use the mercurial energy in a way that doesn't necessarily, sort of find that balance that the Mercury description was talking about, the decision making, the proper decision making balance, because Aries could want to just be more about getting, the self's needs met. So it might act out sometimes with like aggression or with just sort of impulsive kind of response without really thinking enough about what is actually being communicated or what is actually being said. Let me get a few more keywords about Aries, which is again the sign that Mercury is in for the next 2.5 weeks. So you get self-assertion, which can be expressed as confidence or egotism. You get the will, which can be expressed fearlessly or with headstrongness. And you get energetic, which can be ambitious or it can be coarse. So that's kind of the feeling of Mercury in Aries. We're going to feel very inspired. We're going to have a lot of ideas. We're going to feel like we're ready to kind of face the world and get some things accomplished. And we just have to be aware of feeling, so, well, perhaps overconfident or just so much about the self that we tend, more towards not thinking about others. And I want to go over some of the aspects that Mercury is going to be making with other planets, because that'll give us more of an idea of exactly when some of these more challenging expressions of Mercury in Aries may come up for us to observe. So again, tomorrow, April 10th, you can see that Mercury has moved into the sign of Aries. And then pretty quickly, on the 11th, Mercury is going to make a sextile to Saturn. Saturn is here at 1 degree of Aquarius. That's a great combination. Mercury and Saturn, what that suggests is that the mind can be used in conjunction with the ability to use effort to accomplish. So great time to just start marking things, off of our checklist of things that we want to get done. Also a good time because Saturn being in Aquarius right now, Aquarius is the air energy, fixed energy of really kind of having an open mind and also having like, inventive, progressive solutions. So with Saturn in Aquarius right now, the effort that we're making can be used to kind of uh, help create foundations that are really more in alignment with like the whole or the group. It rules humanity, Aquarius. So what this is saying with this Mercury in Aries sextile that Saturn in Aquarius, it says that, you know, this will actually help temper, have more patience, take more time, be able to really put the effort at a slow, steady pace towards whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. So this energy will actually help the Mercury in Aquarius kind of just slow down a bit and take its time with what actually needs to be done, and have a bit more of an open mind in the process, and not have it all just be so much about the self. Then after that particular aspect, we're going to get Mercury squaring the North Node, and this is on April 11th. You can see the North Node is here at 1 degree of Cancer. Mercury is at 1 degree of Aries still at that point. And the North Node in Cancer relates to collectively where we're all headed. So it has to do with this energy of like, of wanting to feel nurtured, wanting to nurture others, wanting to feel secure. This is all Cancerian energy, and connecting more with our emotions and feelings. So with this Mercury in Aries squaring that North Node in Cancer, it might be a day where there's just some conflict internally, where it's like, yes, we want to move on the path of creating security in our life and feeling nurtured in our life and feeling safe in our life. But the thinking process, Mercury in Aries, might be kind of like revved up, you know, and might be like just going full force and having a difficult time sort of working with that North Node in Cancer need to just sort of like feel and be guided by intuition and be guided by our emotions and our feelings. So just a day where there might be a little bit of conflict. It could be where the emotions are really wanting to sort of take over, whereas Mercury in Aries is sort of like, come on, let's go. I've got all of these thoughts and all of these things I want to do. But the North Node in Cancer might be saying, yeah, but is it really about, you know, what's best for us? Is it really about what is going to make us feel comfortable and secure? Then we have Mercury moving into a conjunction with Chiron. And okay, so this is on April 14th. We see Mercury and Chiron coming together. Now that is going to be an interesting conjunction because Chiron has to do with the wounded healer energy. And if there's a wound in a sign of Aries, which is what Chiron is in right now, there's going to be something coming up at this time that may be bringing forth some of our wounded ways of expressing the Aries nature. So we might be feeling less kind of confident or less strong in our self-esteem. You know, these are all wounded ways of the Aries energy expressing itself. And sometimes the overcompensation for that is kind of acting out and becoming more aggressive and, you know, feeling like we have to stand up for ourselves in situations when we really don't. So that's a little bit of the wounded expression of Chiron and Aries. So if it's with Mercury, this could just mean some of the words that we say, some of the conversations we have could take on a little bit of a tone of that woundedness around the Aries nature. But another way this energy could express itself, because Chiron is the wounded healer, is that we might be seeing where some of this wounded energy is acting itself out through the partnerships that we have with others. And we might be able to start be seeing like, gosh, maybe I need to speak up for myself. Maybe I need to stand up for myself. This is the more empowered Chiron energy, where it's not about a big fight or have to be acted out in that way, but it's more about being confident in our own selves and being able to express ourselves from that confident place. So that'll be an interesting day when those two meet. And again, just doing our best to be aware of how that Aries energy can express itself in a wounded way if it deals with the self and the me and the ego, and really kind of keeping it more on the elevated side, where we begin to step more into our ability to communicate what our needs are, and even think about what action might need to be taken at this time through our communication around our personal needs being met. All right, then we are going to have Mercury sextiling Venus, and that's going to happen on the 17th of April. You can see here. And Venus is in Gemini. This could basically stimulate some positive conversation. Venus is about harmony and beauty and love and relationships, and Gemini is the communicative energy. It's the sign that Mercury is ruled, or Mercury rules. So this is just a nice combination for beautifully communicating ourselves, for creatively communicating ourselves, and being able to really create a sense of harmony and balance in our communication with others. We also have Mercury sextiling Mars a few days later on the 18th. And again, this is about communicating, but in a very strong and forceful way. And because Mars is in Aquarius, the sign of progress, the sign of innovation and new ways of doing things, it could be that our thinking process and the way we take action, because they're harmonizing in that sextile, that we're able to move more towards our goals and move more towards where we want to go in this progressive and evolutionary and evolved way. At the same time, again, being able to communicate about it. And this is a great time for, accomplishing tasks, accomplishing paperwork, accomplishing, again, that checklist of things that needs to get taken care of. Mercury also squares Pluto in its transit through Aries, and this is happening on the 25th, and you can see Mercury's at 25 degrees and Pluto is at 25 degrees of Capricorn. This energy at its highest and its most elevated deals with our ability to be able to look inside of ourselves and see where we may be not fully owning what you might call the shadow aspects of ourselves, or the energy that operates in the unconscious that controls, some of the way we may act and behave, and more specifically the things we might be saying. So this would be a good opportunity to really reflect on ourselves at this time and make sure that there's no sort of manipulation or games being played around what we're communicating with people. It can also be a time where we really are able to focus our minds. This is Pluto and Mercury together on, what needs to get done, or what needs to be said. It can be a time where we do feel really powerful, and we can really direct and focus our energy and intent with Pluto, which is power, behind our thinking process. But again, because the two are in a square, that just suggests that there may be some challenge as they both try to express or get, their energy out. And so that's why there's a little bit of caution about being aware of what we're saying and how we're saying it. With this combination, we can get into, very just, downright mean conversation if we let it get out of hand. And the important part, and that really stems from fear and from not feeling safe or secure, and so with Pluto, it's all about transforming, and it's all about death and regeneration psychologically. So we want to be working towards understanding where some of this compulsion or manipulation or power dynamics might be coming from, in order to get a clearer picture and be able to communicate really more honestly. That's what where Pluto can bring us about what we're thinking. All right, and the last aspect that Mercury is making before it moves into the sign of Taurus is also a square to Jupiter. And this is happening on the 25th, and you can see Jupiter's here in Capricorn and Mercury's in Aries. This can be a lot of like desire for positive thinking, optimism. That's what Jupiter's all about. Like, oh, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be okay. Just sort of fluffing our thoughts a bit. And but it is Jupiter in Capricorn, and Capricorn is very serious, and Capricorn is persistence, and Capricorn is effort. And so there is something about Jupiter and Capricorn that kind of limits some of that overexpanded thinking or over optimistic thinking that could happen in this dynamic. But also, coming off the heels of the square of Mercury to Pluto, this could be bringing us a little bit of levity in our thoughts and kind of saying, yeah, you know what, life will go on and we will keep moving here, and it will help us to infuse our thinking process with some inspiration. Again, just needing to be careful with not sort of over-promising or I'm thinking of that song, I never promised you a rose garden. I beg your pardon, I've never promised you a rose garden. Just sort of like, yeah, over-promising, really big expanded ideas that we may not have, true groundedness in. So Mercury squared Jupiter. All right, and then we get Mercury moving into the sign of Taurus, which happens on the 27th of April, and that's a whole nother video, which I'll get to later. So one thing I wanted to end with is something I've been hearing in the news about this time with the COVID virus, is that they're talking about the mental health challenges that this time is bringing up for a lot of people. And I would just say, with this Mercury moving into Aries, again, Aries is about initiating, and it's about getting things started. So if there is any challenges that any of us are struggling with, this is a good opportunity to kind of reach out, initiate, take action around whatever, mental challenges we might be going through at this time. Aries might feel like, oh, I can do it all on my own, or I can do it all alone, but especially with Mercury moving into a conjunction with Chiron during this transit, we might be feeling like sometimes, not so confident and not so strong, and like more of a regressive Mercury in Aries expression. And that, it is important to find those mental support systems that could help us during this process. And again, thinking of Mercury in Aries, being that warrior nature, again, we should all be very aware of not letting that Mercury in Aries energy kind of get out of hand. I've been hearing about domestic abuse going up at this time, and that can be instigated with this kind of Aries and Mercury, or Mercury and Aries kind of aggressive conversation, aggressive fighting words. So being aware that, this time over the next 2.5 weeks can bring up some of those issues in communication, and to bring awareness to that, so we don't let it get out of hand. Okay, thank you so much for watching. And if you like my channel, as always, please subscribe. I would appreciate it so much. And I'll see you at the next video. Take very good care of yourselves.